What's good? What's poppin'? Welcome to another episode of that deep, deep where we connect them dots. And on today's episode, we're gonna talk about the metaphysics of karma. Let's get it, right? All right. So before we get into the whole breakdown of karma, and we're gonna touch on dharma as well. We have to first start to explain how we came to become physical on this plane or on Earth. So before this Earth was physical, it was made out of spirit form, made out of the ethers, is what they call it, right? And if you want to break down etheric material, it will be more reminiscent of gases. So before the earth was a mud ball, it was a gas ball. It was a collection of gas and dust. And if we look at really what that is we can say that those are the elements that you would find on a periodic table, like helium, hydrogen, and things like that. So all of these gases or whatnot were conscious. These things that we call ethers had awareness. And this is why the ether as an element is an ancestor. It predated you, it was a precursor of the version that you are now. So your ancestors on ancestors on ancestors on ancestors were gases, so they lived and interacted with each other in a certain type of state that we could never ever imagine or fathom. As these ethers condensed to become more solidified, is when these ethers turned from multiple elements and broke down into four elements. Is when it became more so like earth, wind, water, and fire. So ether became the four elements, and this is how we started to become more in a physical state of being. But just like how those ethers were your ancestors, these four elements are your ancestors as well. So inside of each one of these four elements are consciousness. So the earth is conscious, the water is conscious, the air is conscious, and fire is conscious. But out of earth comes what you will want to call physicalities, plants, animals, and eventually humans. But all of these things coming out of the one element of earth are all conscious ancestry. You see what I'm saying? So, so at some point, your ancestor was a plant. At some point, you can go into your Akashic records and pull back past live memories of a plant. It'll be a very archaic memory, and it probably wouldn't make any sense if you did pull that past life memory. You probably would be nothing because you don't see with eyes as a plant. You know what I'm saying? So that's a bit of a stretch, but you see where I'm going. Fast forward to the earth element, amongst other things mixed in, you will now get what you want to call the vessel, the human form, the vessel, right? And as you can pretty much figure out, as being a vessel, you're still having a lineage of consciousness and awareness and reincarnating over and over. So went from gases reincarnating over and over with conscious memory to four elements reincarnating over and over with conscious memory to now fast forward being of a vessel with hands and feet, conscious with memory, incarnating and reincarnating over and over. But this is where we get to our main topic of karma. because as you reincarnate, you're here to be the version of God to reflect on itself. Because everything in existence comes from one source. You want to call this source the Most High. You want to call this source Grand Creator. You want to call this self creation itself. Whatever label you want to put on the one infinite point of origin of everything, that's what we're looking at. You know what I'm saying? We can get into concepts and discussions about demiurges, but that's not what we're talking about here. If you don't know what a demiurge, please feel free to pause the video here, take some time out, do your Googles, crack open a book, check it out. But we're going to keep it pushing. All right. So as you're here being a representation of God trying to reflect back on itself, this is where you get the concepts of the basis of religion, or man creating an idea of religion to reflect back on the origin point, because you are a part of God. So that means that you are God, but you are not God at the same time. Like, for example, my pinky is me, but my pinky is my pinky. But it's still me, but it's my pinky. You feel what I'm saying? Same thing with you. You're like the pinky, right? So as you're incarnating over and over into these lives or these timelines of expressions of one source, you're here to recognize that, and you will keep incarnating until you start to understand what this process is and who and what you are. So you will keep incarnating. As you're doing this process, there are things that will quicken your soul. Call them lessons, call them tribulations, call them trials, call them what have you. But the more you don't learn your lesson, as many times as you'll come back to learn your lesson. And this is what karma is. This is the true definition of karma. So, but a lot of people will put on the stigma that, it's about do unto others as what you want done unto you, and be good, because if you be good, you'll get good. If you be bad, you'll get bad. That is a very simplistic way of looking at it. That does happen, but it's a little bit deeper than that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to explain that now. So, for example, we are all from the same source, just multiple timelines of the same source. And I'll get into timelines in a minute. That'll be probably my next video or two after this. But so what happens is, as an expression as yourself, you'll keep reincarnating, and if you're doing or interrupting other expressions of the creator or creation itself, you will have to learn that lesson. Now, that may include for you to reincarnate as that person. Now, this might get a little convoluted, but I need you to feel me. So what real karma is the loop of incarnation. So at some point, you can reincarnate back to all simple elements that you have already been. You can reincarnate as a plant after this next life. You can reincarnate as a bee. You can reincarnate as a coyote. You know what I'm saying? You can reincarnate on all these different timelines to work out your spiritual karma. But fast forward, you can reincarnate into infinite things that ever existed. That's how many lifetimes exist. You can incarnate as many lifetimes as there is granules of sand. That's how long souls have been around. You can incarnate as a granule of sand. Fuck it. If that's what your karma entails, because that's Earth. You can incarnate as Earth. That's some shit, right? But you don't want to get caught up in that type of paradigm. Trust me, right? But I'm really the point that I'm really trying to make is that you can reincarnate as every individual that ever existed. So as you're walking down the street and you're mad at this lady for taking hella long, walking across the street because she's in your way or some shit, you know, because of karma, you will have to incarnate in your timeline to be that lady. I know this is a very convoluted concept to grasp, but time is not linear, and neither is timelines. Timelines cross, they're not just straight. So if we are all expressions of one source, that means we all have connections to that source. I should have dropped my jumping timelines video before this video. It probably will make a lot more sense, but nonetheless, you know, but what I'm saying is we are all expressions of the same thing, which ultimately means that we are all expressions of ourselves. We are all looking at ourselves. That's the secret that they not gonna tell you. That's what they not gonna tell you. Everything is everything. When you look at me, you looking at you. You really looking at a version of you in a different timeline that you will probably have to incarnate to at some point, depending on your level of spiritual and soul maturity. You know what I'm saying? Now, the reason why we get to this point, or how I can even somehow back these claims up, because I don't think this is in a book. It probably is, because there ain't nothing new under the sun. I didn't get it from a book. But the way that I can back this claim up is if we look at the schematics of the tree of life, and that's a good point to always reference to, right? If we look at the tree of life and then we look at this incarnation or this existence as being Malkuth, the bottom Sephiroth, or the bottom sphere at the bottom of the tree. This is where you get the accumulation of all the elements that we may find on the periodic table. I'm kind of recapping that ends up being 4 elements, which ultimately ends up being the physical universe as we can kind of observe it. That's what the bottom sphere of the tree of life represents. Now, what happens is once you're here and you have incarnated so many times to where you kind of like, oh, I get it. I understand what all of this is, the tree of life. I understand how we got to the bottom of the tree. I understand all of this. I have now found God inside of me. You know what I'm saying? When you get to that point of finding God, or finding the Most High, or finding universal creation or creation itself, whatever you want to label it, whenever you understand that it is not in the book, whenever you understand that it is not outside yourself, whenever you understand that it is inside of you, that's when your karmic debt has been fulfilled. So most people that are watching this video or watching this channel, you're probably at the end of your karmic debt, and there's probably not too many more incarnations. If not, this is the last for you. So what happens is most people, once they get to that point, go back up the tree, because it's all about creation observing itself. So now it's time for you to go up the tree. And what may happen is you may incarnate backwards. So from human to element to ether. So you'll start to go back up the tree, just like how you came down. When I said ether, elements, physical, people, you'll start to go backwards and go back up the tree. You see what I'm saying? So I'm using, in this reference, I'm using the Kabbalah as a key to give you some reference, because you're going to be like, that's pseudoscience. You just making shit up. Well, I don't think the tree of life is just something that just fell out the sky and the motherfuckers is just like whatever. So you could look up the tree of life and figure out that puzzle for yourself. I don't have the time to do it right now. And I think I've already done that. I think I've already done that video. I don't know. Shit. After so many goddamn videos, shit, I don't know. So, anyways. So, yeah, you'll start to go back up the tree. Or, if you do become detached, and if you do become a star or a nova soul, a star soul, nova soul, to where you now create your own tree. See, most people who just finish their karmic debt, they will go back up the tree, but depending on the individual, you can start your own tree. You will be, instead of being at the bottom of Malkuth, you'll graduate and you'll become the top of Keter. I hope when I upload this video, I can edit it and put the schematic of the Tree of Life up on the screen. But if I can't, the only thing that I can tell you is go Google the Tree of Life and look at that as a schematic. And when I say Malkuth, that's the bottom Sephiroth or bottom sphere. And when I say that you can become your own Tree of Life, that's pretty much becoming your own God of your own universe. That's the Keter, because that's the top of the tree. So it just keeps repeating itself. So if you look at the schematics of the Tree of Life, and you can Google this as well if you're having a hard time, or if I can't put the schematics up. The Tree of Life becomes the flower of life, that becomes the seed of life, and so on and so forth. So it becomes this huge pattern of sacred geometry. You know what I'm saying? So, but what I'm trying to explain about becoming your own God, that's Dharma. So karma is you existing and going through all the cycles of time. I mean, cycles of karma or existence, and going back up the tree, because you'll play by the rules of karma. You have to learn your lesson. Karma pretty much learn your lesson. So that's the rules of karma. Dharma is that you understand that the rules of karma exist, but you have graduated from those rules, so they do not apply. They exist, but they don't apply. And that's when Dharma kicks in, and that's when Dharma leads you to become your own, very own Tree of Life, and your very own creator, chaos God, I should say, right? So yeah, so that's just a quick little 19-minute video on the metaphysics of true karma and Dharma. So if you like this video, please thumbs up, share, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube shit. You know what I'm saying? Jump on newmysteryschool.com, book a study session, rock out with your boy. We could talk about subjects like this, other things. We could talk about legal, lawful situations. We could talk about anything, metaphysics, esoteric, occult, whatever. I got you. It's good. In a minute.